Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Getting Back Up with me, Anthony Ogogo. In this podcast, I talk to inspiring people that have done great things in both their life and or career, but only after suffering or amid suffering massive setback and adversity. This podcast right here is your weekly dose of hope and inspiration. Each week I talk to a powerful, inspiring figure. And this week I do exactly that. I talk to somebody who is so strong, and I've learned so much from this wonderful lady. Today I talk to Stella Raphael-Reeves. She's a family friend, and she is one of the most positive people I've met in my entire life.
At this present moment, my aspirations are short. So, for example, I'm going to Marbs in 3 weeks' time. It's costing me £8,622 every 3 weeks.
People want the cheesecake, and listen, I was a boxer for a long time, and my whole thing is really weird. I was like a pregnant lady.
Quite like a rough Scotsman, so yeah.
Who doesn't?
There's a famous saying in the Shawshank Redemption that says, get busy living or get busy dying.
I'm not going to talk too much before we get into this one, because she's got a lot to say, and this is a banger. Like every single week, they're all bangers. This is another banger. Stella was diagnosed with cancer, and she is terminally ill with the cancer. And this podcast is one of those ones where this will make you look at your life. This will uplift your spirits, because she is battling something that she knows is going to get her, yet every single day she smiles, and she's so upbeat and positive, and I know you're going to learn so much from this podcast. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. Stella Raphael-Reeves, welcome to the Getting Back Up podcast.
Hello, and thank you for having me on the show.
You're more than welcome, Stella. This podcast is called Getting Back Up because I talk to people with inspiring stories that have done great things in both their life and or career, but only after suffering or amid suffering massive setback and adversity. Now, you fall in both categories. You've done amazing things in both your life and or career, whilst suffering massive setback and adversity, and right now you're in the midst of true adversity, and we're going to talk all about that. I'm going to ask lots of questions today. I'm going to try my best to be as polite and respectful with my questions. I want to apologise in advance, because the things we'll talk about are going to be maybe close to the bone, and I don't want to say anything wrong and offend yourself or anybody listening to this. But before I ask any deeper questions, I'm going to ask now, which I believe is the most important question to ask, and I really want you to answer truthfully. How the bloody hell are you, young lady?
I'm cool. I'm very good, thank you. It's been a really tough 6 months, and the biggest and the toughest thing was giving up a job which I loved, that I'd been in for roughly 30 years as a senior exec in a massive college group. I worked my way up to that, but having to say goodbye to colleagues earlier than I expected due to my circumstances, that was a big thing. It was a big slap to my ego, to my well-being, to the fact something that I'd worked all my life for. I think we all brought up believing that we should work in a job we love, and I felt that I'd never done a day's work in my life because I'd loved my job. So that perhaps at this moment in time, it took 8 weeks to realise that I wasn't going to go back to work, and then 2 months on top of that to talk to my bosses and say, look, I've got to focus on my health as opposed to a career which I love. And, that was a big thing. And my accolades on LinkedIn, really, I guess the comments that came through on my LinkedIn account were just second to none. And they blew me away by people that I'd worked with, and the lives that I had changed through the job that I was doing in education.
So, you've
That was
mentioned.
a long answer.
No,
Sorry.
listen, listen. I talk. I can talk for England, Scotland. Well, I'll talk. I don't stop talking. So who are listening to this podcast, they're sick of me. They want to hear your story, and it's an unbelievably inspiring story. And so therefore, I want you to talk. Please, like, just open your heart and just show us your soul, as I know you will do, because that's who you are as a person. You mentioned a
Thank you.
few things in the opening statement. You mentioned your health. We'll come on to that. That's the big adversity that you're fighting daily right now. You mentioned a few other things in there as well. You mentioned ego, and you mentioned change, and you
Yeah.
mentioned never go into work once in your entire life. Three things there, right? Before we jump into the massive adversity that you're fighting so valiantly. Ego. Talk to me about ego, because I've been doing this podcast for a while now. I've never heard anybody mention their ego before, and I say that I talk to a lot of boxers, footballers, sportsmen, sportswomen, business people, people that have achieved great things. We've all got egos, and nobody's ever mentioned it prior to you. So let's talk about this ego thing.
I think it came to light. I've opened a small sauna business. I invested £9,500 in a horse box, got it converted, got a friend to manage it for me, and we were being interviewed by Suffolk Radio. And the presenter said to me, "Who is Stella Raphael-Reeves?" And I went, "Oh, I'm the uh, Vice Principal for Higher Education and Business Partnerships at the largest college group in London." And he stepped in and went, "Oh, I thought you were a yoga instructor." And I just stepped back and thought, oh my God, is that who people think I am? And why does it bother me that people think I'm just a yoga instructor? And when I went to see the CEO of the company, to officially, he knew I was leaving, but to talk about why I was leaving, I talked to him and said, look, in 35 years you've been in the business, what happens when you retire? And this name, this, how can I say, this label that we work so hard to get on the front of our offices, or to define who we are, is our ego. And I think that really struck me quite deeply. And when you suddenly give up a job and you haven't got that title anymore, you lose that part of you. I'm 60 this year, and I've
You're
always
60
been,
this year.
yeah, so I'm 60
Goodness
for a
me.
boho white party on the beach. Everyone's got to dress in white. Yeah, we're having a big
Am,
shindig on the
am
beach.
I
So you are
invited?
welcome
Thank you.
to travel over to see us on Pakefield Beach, of all places.
You look
It's going to
fab,
be
by the way, Stella. You look fantastic.
so yeah, another big thing with ego is I always had half Greek, so I had long, dark, black, curly hair that was always wonderful and wild. And then only 2 months ago, I lost all my hair. And losing your hair is like losing your
Yeah,
identity.
just quickly, I just want to concur with what you've now said. Hope you don't mind, but I've taken
No,
your number. That if those watching on YouTube right now, your long, beautiful, dark hair you talk about, that stunning.
and now obviously I've got a collection of wigs, which is also quite interesting because I can shape shift every day into something else. I've got my pink one on today. I might wear a long red one. I just move around, but that is also a big thing, especially for a woman. And losing your hair again is a massive identity, and even losing your eyelashes when you've got thick, strong eyelashes and suddenly you haven't got any. So all these things that we take for granted, and you lose because of where I'm at, it becomes it knocks at your ego slightly. And I think that's been a bit of a journey the last few months, but I'm getting over that.
I can concur. I've got, as you know, I've got 3,000 nephews and nieces. That's what it feels like when I go back to the family home and see all the kids. And one of them said, one beautiful little niece said to me a couple of years ago, she went, "You're not a famous boxer anymore, right?"
Oh, ouch.
Right, and she's so sweet. She was like 7. She didn't really understand what she was saying, but I guess
Yeah.
at school she's gone and she was bragging about me. and obviously had retired like soon before, and somebody must have said he's not a famous boxer anymore, and she came home and said that to me. Oof, oof,
Yeah.
the
Oh,
body blow, the ego, the den. And I'm really stuck for words, and that comment hit me like a ton of bricks. And so I get it, and having to like find your identity again, like you said, you wrapped yours up in a beautiful woman with a career woman. Mine was as a boxer, and I had to kind of shed that. How hard was it to do? How hard was it to let go? Or and you only said 10 months ago. Like, are you still clinging on to it, or have you been okay to let it go?
no, I'm not. I've let that
You
go.
have so quickly.
As a woman in my own right, I've accomplished so much in this 59 years. If I was to die tomorrow, I think I've most probably done more than most people have done. And like my sister said, if there is no one that's not accomplished as much as you have. I've not been a pro athlete. I swam for England as a young girl, but I've not been a pro athlete or achieved great recognition, MBEs, etc. But I have achieved lots of things. I think one of the things I could walk away with today is knowing that I've impacted many people's lives in some of the things that I've done within that time. Anthony, I just want to say something. I thought you were going to mention there was a video of you at Christmas running with your niece and nephews, and you ran to the beach, and you like were right on the front, and then you suddenly stopped, and I thought, no, that must have hit his ego slightly when his 10-year-old nephew is running
Okay,
fast.
oi Stella, oi, 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 oi. This is my podcast.
Like, that
I'll
might
be the
be
one telling the stories. So, some context for that. I was racing with my nephews and nieces over Christmas on the beach on Christmas Eve, and I won. I kept winning. And I was being like typical me, loud, gobby, mouthy, like being silly. And then he was like, "Oh, I'll beat you this time." And we all had a race. We all did the race, all of us, even the little 4-year-old. And I gave him a little head start, not a lot of a head start. I gave him a little head start, and then I went. And my nephew Hector is rapid. I had no idea how fast he was. So he's gone off at the clappers, and I've given it one. I've looked across and I thought, I'm losing. And I had to run faster than I thought I was gonna have to. Pulled my quad muscle, pulled my bloody quad muscle, fell to the floor in agony because I got beat I got beat by a 10, 11-year-old, and I hurt my quad. So yeah, ego. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you gotta like realize maybe you're not quite what you were. Identity. I'm surprised how quick you were able to let go the former you. I'm sure there are still parts of of Stella from before, the worker, to you are now the boss, sorry, to who you are now. I've struggled. I've really struggled myself and letting go that the former version of me, because I don't want to let it go. And like you, and we're going to talk about it. We can't keep dancing around the subject why you're wearing a wig and how you lost your eyelashes. We will get into that in a second.
like Miss Piggy here.
You're great. Love the pink wig. I love it. It's very grease. I like it. Right, and then I struggled. I struggled with letting go. I've struggled letting go myself, and my career got taken from me. Too early. I didn't earn the millions of pounds. I didn't become the world champion that my talent and my hard work deserved, or so I thought, and so I think. So I'm impressed how you're able to let it go. How? How have you let it go? Because we all go through things in life. We all go through change. And a lot of times we go through change and it's not up to us. We're forced into change. How have you been so quick to adapt and let go of the shackles that could have held you back?
There's a famous saying in the Shawshank Redemption that says, get busy living or get busy dying. And I think that has been perhaps what I've had in the back of my mind. I think I'll put it into context so people can understand. 10 years ago, I felt a lump in my right breast. Um, I went straight to the doctor. Within 6 weeks, they'd taken a lumpectomy out, and I had chemo and radiotherapy. Didn't lose my hair because I wore a cold cap. Once that had happened, I was unstoppable in my career, in traveling, in making decisions such as giving up work for a year and traveling around and setting up a dance company. And then I felt I was institutionalized. So I went back to education. And then 2 years ago, I couldn't breathe very well. I ran up a flight of stairs, 10 flights of stairs at work, and got to the top, and I thought I was going to collapse. Carried on, went to the doctor. He gave me an inhaler, and I said, I haven't got asthma. And a few weeks later, I was taken into hospital and had, over a period of 3 months, like 12 litres of fluid drained from my pleural area, my lung. And basically, I was told that I had metastatic breast cancer. What metastatic means is that it's terminal, it's stage 4, and that the cells from my lumpectomy had, one cell perhaps had moved around and multiplied in not just my pleural area, but also in my liver. I was given an amazing drug. I didn't want to have my treatment here in Suffolk, and that's another story. I feel I was brought here for a reason. But I went to the Royal Marsden in Chelsea, and under an amazing oncology team. And for 2 years, nothing changed. I was on some amazing treatment. There were tablet forms of chemo, targeted hormone therapy. And for 2 years, nothing changed. My breathing went back to normal. Life didn't change. In fact, I think I went from 100 miles an hour to 150 miles an hour. They gave me a bit of a break, changed a few things. They gave me a break, and I went to Bali for 4 weeks last summer. And when I came back from Bali, I had a few problems breathing. I went into hospital, and over the period of 10 days, I'd lost over a stone. I don't know that in kilos, about 5 kilos maybe. And the doctor came to me, the oncologist, and said, Stella, if you weren't on the treatment that we're going to give you, you would have 3 months to live, and you're not going back to work, and this is your last line of treatment. And to hear that, it was like a slap in the face. Holy shit. Sorry, I shouldn't swear, but I didn't think I was invincible. I didn't want to live forever. I knew I'm not scared of dying, but to be told that this is the last line of treatment was very frightening. And that absolutely changed my views and thinking. As you can imagine, that affected my mindset. I've never had counselling in my life before, or therapy. And I want to bring this up actually because it's quite important. This therapist came into the hospital ward. I was in a private room, which I'm not a private patient, but they put me in a private room, which was wonderful. And she said, on a scale of 0 to 10, Stella, how suicidal are you? And I looked at her and I said, I want the other end of the scale. I want 10 wanting to live. And I think that's an example of, even at that moment in time, I got busy living, if you know where I'm coming from. So that's where I'm at the moment. I do want to say I'm on an amazing American drug called Enhertu. It's costing me £8,622 every 3 weeks. Thank God I've got the money in the bank, and that's come from various sources of my own. However, what really worries me is that what happens to people that haven't got that financial money? Do they die? Do they just give up? So hopefully the NHS, Anthony, will bring the drug into the UK. It is on the cards, but I'm already talking to lots of American people that are on the drug, etc. And it's looking hopeful so far because my breathing's great and I feel invincible again. So something's working. So sorry, that was a very long way of explaining, but I think it's covered quite a few bridges.
Stella, I'm gonna tell you off, okay? Never apologize for telling your story. All we have
Yeah.
are our stories.
Mm-hmm.
They're very important to us and they belong to us. So never apologize for telling your story, because we could end the podcast right now and this, which we're not going to, of course, because there's so much more, I know, but I've got so much value from this. You are such an inspirational figure, a powerhouse of a woman, and I'm firstly so sorry you've gone through all that from the bottom of my heart. However, it seems like cancer picked the wrong person when it picked
Women
when it
that
picked on
say
you.
FUCK cancer. I've never done that. I hate all these groups. I love the fact that they raise money for cancer. I've left some money in the will for research, and I think it affects us in different ways. I think I'm fortunate, and I'm fortunate that I've got a lot of loving friends and, of course, family, and I'm financially secure. I don't need to worry about a mortgage or money, and that makes a big difference in life. And knowing that you're loved. I'm going to tell you a story, Anthony, because this relates to your family, your sisters who live here in Pakefield. I was brought here on a job, and I fell in love with where I live in Suffolk. It's the most easterly point of England.
You know, in the whole of the UK. Don't do us dirty,
Okay, well,
Stella.
yeah, it
The
is.
whole of the UK.
It's not Barbados or it's not a fabulous beach in Costa Rica, but it is a beautiful beach, and I'm a beach girl. I bought a little pink house 120 steps from the beach. The job didn't work out after a year, but I stayed here. And over the last 4 years, 5 years, I've built a yoga community in that there's a fabulous festival called the First Light Festival here, and I got heavily involved. And then every Sunday on the beach from 9 till 10 o'clock, I decided to teach yoga. It's something I've been doing for years. And I've built up a community. Sometimes there's 100 people on the beach, all ages, all sizes. And Leanne, Anthony, your sister, helps me out when I'm not. And she's actually branched and does a class, sunrise yoga on a Friday, and we've got a fabulous community of people here. On New Year's Day, I decided to do a beach yoga. And this is a point that I wanted to get across. And I turned my back to the group and looked out to the sea. And I thought, is this the last New Year's Day that I see? And that is when that's when it hits you. And those little moments is when you've got to be your strongest. And you look around the people around you and know how much love you have. And you walk back along the beach with the sun on your face and the wind in the wig. I can't say wind in my hair anymore, but the buzz cut's coming through. And yeah, and you kind of, it opens your eyes to be blessed. I think the one thing that people need to know is to be grateful and show gratitude every single day for what we do have, because there's a lot that don't have that.
Okay, so I'm sitting there and I'm so inspired by you're sitting there and you're smiling, got a beautiful smile. For those watching on YouTube, got a beautiful smile, got the pink hair. You look like Rizzo from Greece, right? It's like Frenchie. Is it Frenchie?
Yeah.
I think it's Frenchie. But you just look so happy and so positive, and you just mentioned gratitude. Okay, but why? How are you grateful? How do you find that gratitude? Because life has given you, in many people's perspective, and this is all about perspective, right? I understand about perspective, and I'll talk about perspective a lot on this podcast, because when you change the way you think, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that's a quote. I love that quote. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. But it's so hard because we get addicted to thinking in a certain way, and it's so hard to change that. How can you wake up and be looking outside, like out to sea on New Year's Day, and be grateful when so many people would be pissed off and upset and bitter that may be your last New Year's Day, and Jenny and Mark and Steve and Bob and Penny, they've all got 5, 10, 20 more potentially. How do you feel grateful about that, not being pissed off and angry?
I think that comes back to my quote, get busy living or get busy dying, because this drug could work. When I say it could work, it could hold me steady for the next 1, 2, maybe 3 years. And so there's always hope. I will never be cured, but there is hope that this drug, NHER2, is particularly designed for my type of metastatic breast cancer. And you always think, I've always seen the glass half full, and I think that's what made me very different at work, because I always pushed forwards and took risks. And maybe, what am I supposed to do? Sit here in my little pink house with my pink wig and look out the window and be miserable? And there are moments of pure despair. I can't lie, but they are moments. And they are real moments. I said to your sister the other week, actually, Anthony, the two things I haven't done recently is danced, like naked in the rain type of thing, that type of dance, and also laughed so much that I was crying. And then I was at the spa weekend with my sister, and something happened, and we were rolling about on the floor laughing, and that was so good. And it's those moments that you think, this is good. When all the girls show up on the beach and sing me happy birthday, or when my mother died, they all turned up with lanterns, and it's about community, it's about friends, and it's about seeing that sunrise and knowing that it's precious. And I think that's always been in my bones. I've always seeked the sun and happiness and good food. I live a healthy lifestyle and I try and preach it, but not push it down people's throats, if you know what I mean.
My next question was going to be about, you kind of mentioned it then, but your source of strength. Is it a community, your friends, you mentioned your sister, they keep you up? How important are they, and how important is it for other people to have a community, be it one or two or three or 10 people, to lift them up when they are feeling like times of despair?
I don't think I need people to lift me up. I think sometimes, and actually, I'll be honest with you, I sometimes get fed up with it when people go, "How are you, Stella? Oh, you look really well." Because that then has a negative effect sometimes, because I don't want to talk about it all the time. I don't want to be defined by it.
You are more, and you mentioned to me. Sorry to interrupt. You mentioned when we're doing this podcast, you were like, and I do want to talk about you because you're a fantastic, phenomenal person, and you lived a great life and career. And you said to me, "I love to do the podcast, but I don't want to be defined by the cancer,
Yeah, yeah.
by the terminal." And you're not, and it's and that's the great thing. And I've got some questions as well about, like, when someone in your situation, how do people act? Like, how do you want people to act around you? Do you want us to ask? Do us not to ask? Because someone like myself, or friends, like, they want to ask because they feel like they want to know how you are, but they don't want us to bring up, like, how do we work? How do we work around it?
It is hard. I think one of the things that annoys me most of all, and it's the only thing, I think is, no, it doesn't annoy me. People don't understand the difference between cancer, stage 1, 2, 3, and metastatic, which is stage 4, which is terminal. You can't get rid of it. You can stop it. All the wonderful drugs that the farmers are coming up with are to try and stabilize it and show no evidence of the disease. But it cannot cure it. And that was the biggest thing for me. And there's a lot of fabulous Instagrammers that are sharing their story and trying to make people aware. And so when you do a post or something and someone says, "Oh, we can't wait for you to get better," that's their misunderstanding of it. And I think people genuinely care, and I can't sort of say, "Oh, stop asking me," because that's not the way to go about it. But I want to be treated just normally. And I think most of my close friends understand that. And they'll always ask how I am. And I always say, tell them how I feel. And there's a few close people that I really try. The worst thing that people can say to you is, "Oh, we can all get run over by a bus or a car." And I feel like saying, yes, but if you knew it was going to be this year, how would you be? How would you feel? And I think that's the difference. That's the difference. That's the thing I throw back at people when they say that. But I'm not bitter, I'm not twisted. My sister would say, how can you not be so angry and say, "Why me?" But no, no, it is me, and I'll give it everything I've got. I've had great, great moments and great times, great men in my life. That's another whole podcast, trust me. Just it's just life's good. Life has been good. Sorry, I digress.
Thank you. Well, digress. We'll do a part two in a few months. Digress away. I want to hear all about the men. That'd be a fun one.
Yeah.
um, I would like to talk about aspirations.
Yeah.
Both young Stella Raphael
Yeah.
and Reeves, and present day.
Okay.
What are your aspirations now in terms of what do you want to achieve out of the rest of your life, not knowing how long? And the thing is, I'm not, and again, I mentioned at the very beginning, I want to be very careful with the things I say, and I'd hate to offend, but
No,
you also,
it's other people might find offensive. I don't find anything offensive.
I also want to like learn, right? Like ultimately, the second we're born, we're all gonna go one day.
Yes.
Now we don't know when we're gonna go,
Mhm.
and we take life for granted because we think we're going to be here forever. We think nothing can happen to us, and something happens to us. You get this diagnosis, and then you're very aware of your mortality. When those things happen, do you enjoy things more? Because you know there is a limit now. You're aware you could get hit by a bus like anybody could, but you have a time frame, a guide. When you have these moments on the seafront, looking out and knowing it could be your last time, you see this person, that person. Is life almost better because you know it might not have they may never happen again? Do you enjoy these moments more in a strange way?
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I've always enjoyed life's moments. I've travelled extensively all over the world. I've lived in many places for many years, and I think my mother always inspired me. I think the difference is I've always had 5 year plans. Anthony always said, right, in 5 years I'm going to do this, in 5 years I'm going to do that. By then I'm going to have this, and etc. From a young child, and that thankfully was from my mother and my father. My father was always drummed into us that death is something that comes to us all at the end. I've never been scared of that. I think the interesting thing is that at this present moment, my aspirations are short. So, for example, I'm going to Marbs in 3 weeks' time. I know it sounds stupid. And then in March, I'm going to go to Sardinia with another friend. And then I'm going to do the first, I've got very short term goals because what I have to tell my friends is things might change. If this drug works, great, fantastic. But things could change daily, really. So I try to give myself short term goals. I've achieved pretty much everything I wanted.
Stella, can I just jump in on that one, please?
Yeah.
Before you talk about the achievements in a minute. That's an amazing way to live life, though. If you look at it, if you slice it up in a particular way, that's an amazing way to live life because you're always doing something. We always, and we're going to talk about my fitness app in a moment, which you're going to contribute to, which I'm so chuffed and thrilled about. And one of the things I drill into my app is you haven't got to see the whole staircase. You just have to see the first step. People look so far, a year, 5, 10 years ahead, and they look so far ahead, they forget about the next step. They don't do the things in front of them, and they get overwhelmed. They just don't do them. But what I love about that thing you mentioned just now is like, because of your situation, you have to make short-term goals and aspirations. Let's go to Marbs next month. And then you go, let's go to Sardinia the month after. Because they're social. Therefore, you've gone to Marbs and Sardinia. If you had, a guaranteed 25 years left to live, you probably wouldn't go to Marbs next month or Sardinia the one after. So I love that. There's beauty in the fact that because you have a question mark at the end, you've got to do things now. And I love that. And I think we should all, whether we think we're going to live to 100 or not, we should all do things we want to do because you never know. You never know.
Financial restraints. But I also want to put, although I'm quite boisterous and I do have moments of pure mindfulness and being in the moment. And one of the things I love doing with the yoga on the beach is at the end, we line up right along the beach with our hands on our heart and the back of the person next to us. And we take 10 breaths. And I think every morning I meditate, I sit in silence and not just show gratitude, but just be in my flow state of peacefulness. Because you have the yin and yang of life, the juggling, the running to London, doing my job, coming back, having the work-life balance. I think that's a really critical thing for everybody to get right. And I think it took me 45 years to get that right. But I did get it right. And from that moment where I got my work-life balance right, I think, and my mindfulness and my meditation and all my yogi kind of inspiration from others, I think, and adventures. That's what
Adventure.
keeps me going. I remember driving on my own from Whistler in Canada all the way through Oregon, down across San Francisco, through the Redwoods, down to LA on my own. It was 1,500 miles. And I did that in a convertible Mustang, and I did it on my own. And that was, just driving through the Redwoods is something within. You have that inside yourself. And it didn't come easy. I had to work for it. I didn't just have money on the plate. We're a working class family and worked.
Yeah, and I want to get to that point. I just two things. Like I last year, I drove down the west coast of California.
It's beautiful.
Wow,
Yeah.
so stunning. It's beautiful. The views, the ocean, the oceans on one side, the mountains on the other
Yeah.
side, just beautiful. And those moments, you just stop and look and go, "Oh, this is what life is all about. It's not getting stuck in the rat race."
Yeah.
About the money thing, you mentioned about money. People might think she can afford 9 grand a month and every 3 weeks to pay everything. I know you use your. I know you mentioned your mother passed away and she left you some money and you like helped. Like NHS, let's get the fucking drug on the system, Cal, shall we? Because that's not like you've worked your ass off your entire life. And don't get me wrong, listen, like life is so important, and you'd rather be extending your life than buying flash stuff. I get that, but fuck me, man, come on, innit? Let's put if there's a drug out here that works here in the US, I'm in the US at the minute, in America, then get it on the NHS. If it's helping people like yourself, hard working, honest people, fuck man, like just that pisses me off. That because it's this whole and like you said, like thankfully you have the money because you've worked your ass off your entire life to save and stuff. Those poor that my mum. Right, mum, a single parent of 5 kids. She couldn't spend. She can afford 1 month of it.
I know.
And it's just unfair for those kind of people, right? And it's just like it just annoys me. It just annoys me. The government spends so much money on shit, going to war, doing this, doing that.
But, and I think it's quite funny actually because Scotland, you can go to Scotland and you can have this drug. I could go and live in Scotland like in a 5-star hotel for that money, but obviously I'm not Scottish, so I can't get it on the system there.
Can't you marry a Scottish fellow and just
Yeah,
get
yeah, that's one way of doing it. Quite like a rough Scotsman. So yeah,
who doesn't?
so I'll have to try and find something. But yeah, it is, yeah, it is unfair.
But like you said earlier, like what I've taken from you and what I've learned from this conversation already is it's unfair, but you've got to accept it. And what else you can do? Sulk and cry? No, you're going to get busy living or you're going to get busy dying. And I love that, the outlook and that perspective. I wish I'd have adopted that. One of the reasons I did this podcast, actually, well, the main reason this podcast was born, in the midst of my eye trauma, 2017-18. I was really down and I'd hurt my eye in my last, which ended up being my last boxing match. And I trained every single day. I went from my house in Essex to West London to train. I was training like I was fighting for the world title, even though I might never box again. And I needed inspiration. I was getting inspiration from everywhere. I was reading books and this, and I wish there was like a library where of inspiring stories going to keep me going. Because I wanted to quit every single day because I'm basically blind in my left eye, as you know. And I needed inspiration to kind of get me going and get me out the door and keep training hard. It's hard. Boxing training is the hardest training in the world. And then it's hard to do when you're training for a fight. When there's no fight, it's hard to do because you don't know when you're boxing. When you may never box again, which was the state I was in, and get up every single day and do your hard running and do the dieting and training hard, it's almost impossible. And I needed inspiration, and that's where this podcast was born from that idea. And I wanted to share stories out there for other people to enjoy. Kind of selfish. I did this for me as well. Like I heal for my guests.
That is definitely what podcasting's about. It's about finding something that you want to talk about and finding people that can support that. I think you mentioned two things there: training and physical fitness. And I think that is one thing that I would say. has saved me, and that's the fact that my physical fitness has always been a priority. And I think it's about consistency, Anthony, as well, about getting up in the morning, doing your 20 minutes Courtney Black here, or whatever you're doing, your Anthony.
Ogogo fitness, Ogogo fitness, that Ogogo fitness. Come on, girl, come on.
Anthony's app, if it's 7 minutes, yeah, whatever it is, but to be consistent at something. And that's one thing. 90%, I'll say 90% of my life I've been consistent, and that physical fitness has supported me when I'm having this awful drugs pumped into your body. And or for example, with you, with your physical disability with your eye, your physical fitness has a mental impact.
Oh, 100%.
And I can't get that across enough, that you're, how can you continue when my physical and mental well-being is a priority in my life, and more so as I've got older, that that has always been.
Which brings us nicely onto the next part of the conversation, and we're going to link back to your stories interwoven in all of this. But how we met. So as you know, I'm launching. So, but when this episode airs, it's already out there. Ogogo Fitness. Head over to ogogofitness.com and sign up for your free 7-day trial, and hear the wonderful Stella Raphael-Reeves in the mental fitness section. So this podcast is so I'm launching my fitness app, and I want to do some stretching and as you know, my sister's a qualified yoga teacher. She works with yourself, and I called Leanne and said, "Hey, Leanne," and she's much bendier, much better than me, and she's very pretty and athletic and very, very, very pretty, nice to look at. So I said, let's do some yoga stuff together, or some stretch and recovery sessions together. So my phone has gone off. Let's do some yoga, some stretching and stuff together. And I said, Leanne, I really want to get like in my mental fitness section in the app, or mental fit, like you mentioned a minute ago. You have your physical fitness and your mental fitness. And the Ogogo Fitness is all about promoting overall health, right? Physical and mental. The way we think affects the way we feel, therefore the way we act. So it's a happy cycle, right? A virtuous cycle, they call it. And I said, Leanne, I want to get some guided meditation. Oops, shit. Sorry. Oh, goodness.
Have you fallen off your stool?
My,
Humpty Dumpty.
I pulled my headphone up. I said to her, Humpty Dumpty. I've been called worse. That's quite apt, actually. I said, Leanne, I said, I want some in the mental fitness, some guided meditations. And she said to me, well, you got to talk to Stella. I said, who's Stella? And she'd mentioned you before. We didn't get to connect over Christmas because obviously Christmas is super busy. And then we had a chat last week, actually. We've had one phone call before this, and we had one chat. And then I said about, would you like to kind of contribute to the app? And Leanne told me briefly your story. Then when you were talking, I was so overwhelmingly inspired by you and your positivity and your energy. I could hear your energy from the phone. And then I said, hey, let's do a podcast, because some of the things it was like a podcast. Our chat last week was like a podcast, so inspiring. I felt so pumped, and I'm just so thrilled. Obviously, we haven't recorded it yet, but hopefully in the next month we'll connect and we'll do some guided meditations, and just you can just be your fabulous self on my app. And it's just, I want people to just come and get your energy. And so what is it? So what is fitness to you? What is mental fitness, and what is fitness, or is it the same thing?
So there's a few things. There's a difference between mental fitness and physical fitness, but you need mental fitness to be able to guide your physical fitness. So there's mindfulness, that's being in the present,
which is hard to do, which is very, very hard to do, isn't it? Especially when you go through life, it's really hard to be present.
And most people are taking. So, for example, the girls here, they go in the sea all the time. They go for cold dips, which I think is amazing, inspirational. But they spend more time just chatting, or more time, which is great for them. But we take so many photos that we're actually not mindful of the present moment that we're in. And sometimes walking along the beach at sunrise, it's beautiful pink. I take photos and want to share it with the world, whereas not rather than just walking slowly and taking that time and being in the present moment. And I think iPhones have been, a product of our habits and the way we are in the present moment. Then there's the flow state, and that's finding your state where you are so in the moment that you are in the present moment, you're not anywhere else, and that's a beautiful state to be. And I think they're the moments that we need to try and find what puts us into our flow state. Meditation is just sitting quietly and sitting and trying to get rid of all those thoughts that come in and out. And I think on the app I'd like to sort of do a few of each, like little 10-minute sessions on each of those things: how to find your flow state, how to meditate. So it's not for hardcore meditators, because they don't need an app or they don't need someone to sit down. These are the people that really need support in trying to find that peace and quiet and being supported in trying to find that. Physical fitness is having the mental mindset to get up and be consistent every single day. And that's important. And knowing how to train. You're 90%. I did triathlons for 15 years with the British Army. And
you just say things. You throw amazing things away, right? Like,
I did triathlons.
earlier Stella, you said no, I didn't get an MBE, didn't compete for my country, but I did swim for England when I was 15. And I was like, goodness me, Jesus! It's like you just threw away a massive accolade.
Not when you speak to some of your lovely, your amazing clients that you've had on the podcast. It isn't a physical, but I do believe that it's just. I forgot where I was going there. We were talking about
physical fitness,
and it is critical to be consistent. And I think that's the one thing that we need to do, even if it's 5 minutes of yoga or 5 minutes stretching, to keep being consistent. So positive. If I know what I was going to talk about, diet. You can train every single day of your life and train hard. If you don't eat the right foods, you will never get to the body or the physical fitness that you want, because
or the mental fitness, because you eat something, you eat shit, guess what, you feel shit
the next day you feel terrible.
And it's like, and that's the thing, people don't really people want the cheesecake. And listen, I was a boxer for a long time, and my whole thing is really weird. I was like a pregnant lady. Like, when I was boxing, when I was in my 12-week training camps, I had to lose like 1.5 stone, up to 2 stone every time I used to fight, and I have cravings. And there's 24-hour Asda just opened up in Lowestoft, and I'd like that was the bane of my life, because there was always poppadoms and mango chutney. My thing, two things: poppadoms and mango chutney.
Oh God,
weird, and cheesecake. And I'll be in my car 3 a.m, poppadom, and I have get a whole like tub of it. I'll have one poppadom and mango chutney and throw the rest away, because I needed the taste, like a pregnant lady, right? And then the thing is, and it's your mind, it's being in control of your mind, and this is the mental fitness and mental flexibility, being able to control it. Because when I'd have the boxing match, I'd have a week off after the fight, and then in that week off, I could have anything I wanted. All of a sudden, I don't want the mango chutney, I don't want the cheesecake, I don't even want it. It's your mind playing tricks with you. But yeah, go back to what you said. It's everything. I call it diet. I'm trying to get this thing off the ground. I haven't done it. I haven't included this in the app yet. But it's FITE, the system I might implement. But F is the fundamentals. I think you fundamentally have to learn how the body works.
Yeah.
So in the app, it's not just press ups and punches. I'm teaching people stuff like how the body works. I'm teaching you about when you move, you release serotonin in your brain. Serotonin makes you feel good. Serotonin is an antidepressant, makes you feel good. You got your own natural antidepressant in your brain just by exercising. So I teach the fundamentals. I teach the ingredients we've got to put in our body, not just the food, but also in our mind as well. Like we can feed our brains positive, inspiring stuff like this podcast, right? Like happy self-help books. The T is the training. That's the fun bit. That's the 7-minute workouts that we do on the app. FITE, and E is becoming excellent. E is excelling. E is being energized. E means so many different things. But FITE, fundamentals, ingredients, the training, and the excelling. That's what This isn't a hard sell about my app. This is
No,
just fitness,
beautiful. It's exactly what people need.
and it's small and it's bite sized. It's a slow introduction, and I just think like having people like yourself. So actually, I want to thank you, for wanting to be on my app for a start and offering all your energy out to the world, because it's I'll be on it. I'll be doing your meditations all the time. I really will, because I think life's all about growing, and I say we often think I say on here is we can either go through adversity or we can grow through adversity. And just talking to you, you're definitely somebody that has grown through all the adversity that life has thrown at you, and what is left is this beautiful, amazing, inspiring person that I'm very privileged to be talking to today.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Really nice. Thank you.
Stella, something you've mentioned in this podcast, and I know from talking to Leanne, you love to travel. You love to see the world. You spent time in America. You did a degree in America. You've seen so much of the world. Why is that so important to you?
I think it's partly from my mother and my father. My father was brought up as a Spartan in Greece. He was from Sparta, and he left.
Was he really?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's so cool.
His
That's so cool.
best was like even as two girls that he had. I think he always wanted two boys. He did have two boys in the end. That's another podcast.
So from this, we've decided there will be a part two.
Yeah, part of
There's going to be a part two. Okay, so if you're enjoying this, people,
by Raphael, and he
okay.
he joined the Merchant Navy at 16, married my mum, who was Jewish, and he was a Greek Catholic, and obviously really mixed up kid. And I wanted to bring this up because when I say mixed up kid, I wasn't a mixed up kid. I just didn't have a clear identity at school. I knew that was bright. I did.
And where was school? Where did you grow up?
In Ilford in Essex.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm an Essex girl, truly
Mm-hmm.
bred. So in school, there were a lot of Afro-Caribbean, there was a lot of Asian, Indian, Chinese, and very few white British. And I didn't even fit in there because I had dark skin, curly hair. I didn't follow any religion, even though my mum was Jewish, my dad was Catholic. So when I was 21, I finished my degree at North East London Poly at the time, and decided to find out who Stella was. And that set on a journey of 10 years living away from the UK. And I ended up travelling all over the world, completing my master's in San Diego State, which married my husband at the time, who was a military, and ended up in Germany for a few years. I worked in Israel, and everywhere that I went, I felt part of. So in Spain, I felt Spanish. In Italy, I felt Italian. In France, partly French. And in Israel, felt part of the community and the people there. And I think travel, you can't do it like we used to do it. I mean, me and my friend travelled for 10 years and we didn't have phones. Mobile phones to phone our parents, but it makes you a richer person. And when I say richer, you meet different cultures, you talk to different people, you widen your horizons. And when I eventually came back to England, I made it, a big thing. I chose a career that allowed me to have holidays. We have 37 to 45 days holiday a year in education. So we have 5-6 weeks in the summer. And I always made it my intention to travel and spend weeks. I've spent months in India and Thailand. I spent a month in Bali recently. And just traveling around and meeting new cultures, not just from the people that live there, but other people that are visiting. I think it adds some quality, a richer quality into your life, and makes you more adaptable, more acceptable of other people's cultures. And that's just what that travelling has done. I've always had that bug inside me. So yeah, that's a big thing about travelling. I need to bring this up because I was institutionalised. I was in education, and I was institutionalised. I was working for the English Cricket Club, standardising the level of nutrition. I wanted to get away from all that, and I stopped work for a year and travelled. I started a dance company called Tribal Spirit. It's kind of an ecstatic dance with djembe drums and musicians, and we travelled as a team to Jamaica, to Negril, and did a couple of festivals there, to Costa Rica, to Mexico. And that was really a special time in my life. But after a year of doing that, you realise actually I kind of wanted to be institutionalized again and earn the salary and have a regular income, because I found it quite distressing not knowing what was going to come the next week or the next month, because that's quite difficult with following careers like that. It is all about giving your time and energy and getting a room and board, but you can't actually live like that for a long time unless you're
Yeah.
prepared to do that. Unfortunately, I didn't have children. I married a man who couldn't, but we were married for like 10 years, and that was a really wonderful relationship, and we're still great friends. Can't complain that we got divorced, because we've both done different things in our lives. So, and we traveled a lot together. So, yeah, there's lots of fabulous things in my life that have made me who I am today, and I think traveling was a great big part of that, and still is really.
So a couple other things I want to say before we wrap up today. You have the dance company. You have the sauna thing in Lowestoft.
Sauna, yeah.
My sister went at Christmas time. She loved it. Said it was amazing. She literally said it was. She did the old. She went. She just forgot how to talk. She went. It was amazing. Like that. So she broke it into syllables. So
Or a partner, I don't know. He was great. He used all my scrub and all my pack. He loved it. They really did. It's a fabulous little thing. It's
where can people find it?
Salty Sauna on Facebook and Instagram.
Nice.
Yeah, just message Hannah through that and she'll book you in. 6 people max at a time. You have to take a towel and you have to wear swimsuit. We're not quite Germany or Finland and Sweden yet, but it's beautiful. It's just off the beach and you just go down steps into the sea.
So you go in the sauna, you run into the sea, right? You have a little scrub in the sea, back in the sauna, you go
Yeah,
back and forth between the sea. Yeah, sounds
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Sounds
It's fabulous.
wonderful.
About
Sounds
90
wonderful.
degrees in the sauna, so it's quite warm. And yeah, we look after you with scrubs and face packs, etc., and a whisk in.
And finally, and feel free to elaborate on this one. When the time comes
Mhm.
for all of us, and this has been a pivotal point of this conversation, what legacy do you want to leave behind?
I've told the girls I want a statue on the beach. No, and no, I want people to. I think the one thing that I want people to remember me by is my positivity,
Hmm.
my impact on the community here in Suffolk. I really believe I have brought people together, and they've formed great friendships, circles of friendships. It's not just me on my own; it's the people that are with me that have done that. Um, I've made a positive impact to people's lives through education. Um, Many young footballers and cricketers who I was fortunate to meet through my nutrition pathway and establishing a nutritional package for them, um, worked really well. And I still feel I've made an impact on some of those lives. Well, I know I have because they tell me. And it's a privilege. Everyone I meet, I try to sort of make them feel good. It doesn't hurt by saying something nice to people. Um, and I've been blessed with opportunity perhaps to do that in wider circles. So yeah, Anthony, it's been a pleasure being on here, and I hope I've made some impact to somebody who maybe is going through something similar. But you got to get busy living, and whether you've got a terminal disease or not, every moment counts, and be in the present moment. When the sun rises and it's 6 a.m. and here in the Suffolk it's sometimes 4:30 a.m. and my bedroom fills with like an orange pink glow, I pull myself out of bed and I go and walk to the beach, and or just look out the window, because that's what it's all about.
Wow. Well, I talk on behalf of everybody listening today and watching. You are such an infectious, magnetic, charismatic person, and it's been an honor to talk to you for the last hour. I wish you all the best moving forwards, and let's have a great time in Marbs and in
Oh,
Sardinia.
thank you. When I get back, part two.
100%. I was gonna say that. Let's do it. Let's do an air shake. Shake on it now, so you can't do the shake. I want to see the shake. Do the handshake. I want to see the handshake. Yeah. Right, we've shook. Stella, thank you so much. You
Thank
are an
you.
absolute legend, and just thank you for being so open and honest. You're a star.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank Stella again. What a phenomenal human being she is. As I mentioned at the top of this podcast, I have learned a lot from her. The positivity, the enthusiasm. You don't know how. Often we don't know what we have until it's been taken away from us. Or we know the sand dial is going down. And I think, listen, Stella has been handed a real unfortunate set of cards, but she's playing them the best she can. And the thing is, we're all dying. We're all dying. Every single day we're alive. We're getting closer to death, whenever that may be. Hopefully, it's many, many, many years away, but it might be tomorrow. It might be next week. It's one of those ones where it's like, when you are facing death in the eyes, I guess you realize what you have to live for. And I think Stella done an amazing job articulating her life. And I'm just still overwhelmed by it. I'm still overwhelmed by the podcast. Wow, what an amazing woman! And I hope you've learned something from today's podcast. Stella will be on the Ogogo fitness app, as you mentioned on the podcast. Check out her meditations. She's the kind of person I listen to, and I feel happier automatically. She can wake up every single day and find beauty and find joy in the world. Then why can't anybody? So I'll wrap this up here, because I'll be saying the same thing. You just heard the podcast. Stella, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us and the listeners and the watchers and the viewers. If you've enjoyed this podcast, and I'm sure you have, I urge you please to send this to a friend or family member, work colleague, anybody that you think might benefit from listening to this. I'm sure obviously cancer has touched somebody in your life, in your world, and the last hour or so conversation with Stella hopefully might bring a bit of peace or happiness to somebody else's life. So please share this around. Leave a comment, leave a review. It really goes a long way to helping the podcast grow. And I will see you next week. Take care.